I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 annual meeting of Historic Pella Trust. I'm Bob Zylstra, and I'm currently serving as the president of Historic Pella Trust. We're holding our annual meeting via video recording due to the COVID epidemic. It's a new format for us, and we hope you enjoy it. And special thank you to Jim Emmert for helping us create this video and providing us with the expertise on how to do that. A brief outline of what's coming in our program. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about our major accomplishments for the 2019-2020 year. Then we'll cover a little bit of our financial summary. Jennifer Van Coten, our executive director, will lead a video tour of the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. Mary Van Wyk will lead a video tour of the 1950s era Strawtown Cottage that she's running as a VRBO located at 1110 Washington Street. Then Katie Douglas will lead a video tour of her 1850s era rock house at 1601 University. Particularly on the last two, I think you'll notice where they take a little bit of creativity and insight and enthusiasm and take an old, somewhat dilapidated structure and put it into wonderful new service. And we're really proud of what they've done there. A quick bit about the major Historic Pella Trust role and mission. We're normally confused with the Historical Society. We were separated in 1994 with a mission to promote and protect the buildings. And that's really our distinctive feature. We have a very similar mission as the Pella Historical Society in our focus on heritage and our Dutch heritage in particular. But our focus is really on real estate, architecture, and what that means to not only to our organization, but to the community of Pella. And as we often like to say, the buildings we're enthused about is where they were talking Dutch when they built the buildings. Currently, Historic Pella Trust has a 9-member board. In addition to me, there's Matt McCullough, who is our vice president. Bruce Borchi is our secretary. Bruce Hostine is our treasurer. The other board members are Dodie Boat, Dwayne Rempe, Lila Turnbull, Wayne Steenstra, Mary Van Wyk. Ron Rietveld and Ralph Jarsma are members emeritus and still have a very active interest in what we do. And for you, if you have an interest becoming much more involved in Historic Pella Trust, we invite you to contact us to see what's involved in becoming a board member. You can reach us at the contact location at our website, which is at www.historicpellatrust.org. So now the major accomplishments for our 2019 and 2020 year. First on these is the use of conservation easements. Historic Pella Trust had been using conservation easements since the late 1990s. Conservation easement is an ongoing contract between Historic Pella Trust and the property owner. It prevents current owner as well as future owners of a property to a commitment where they will take care of, do good maintenance on the property, and prevent it from being torn down. We recommitted ourselves to this process with the conservation easement program we started using 2 years ago, and this year we had a particularly good year where we had 4 new conservation easements. The first of these was the Pella Brick and Drain Tile House at 222 Oskaloosa. This was a house that was built by the Pella Brick and Drain Tile Company and its owner Herman Rietveld. The second was the old blacksmith shop that's located at 914 Franklin Street that was recently sold by Bobby Klein. And before he sold it, Bobby arranged to make sure we had a conservation easement on that. And that's the old house that's located at the northeast corner of West Market Park. The third is the Elko Van Houten House. This is located at 306 East 1st Street. It's currently owned by Arvin Van Renen. And the last is the Rock House at 1401 University, where a conservation easement was put on it as part of the sales agreement with the Douglas family. Second project or accomplishment is the Collegiate Historic District. This has been something we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 years at our annual meeting. It is continuing to move, although moving admittedly slowly. But here we hope to have an entire neighborhood of Pella protected with a covenant that basically is supported by a city ordinance, which puts a zoning overlay in order to protect the buildings in that. And this is going to be covering the area generally between downtown Pella and Central College. A third accomplishment is the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. You'll see more of that in the video in a few minutes, but it's at our 1843 Tuttle Cabin, where we have a walkway now completed between the cabin and the walkway, or the Sunken Garden Park. It's available to walkers, and we've seen walkers of all ages enjoying that. Really a very nice wandering path through an old alleyway. We have plans in the future to be putting in signage and upgrading the foliage and plantings around that. Mentioned we purchased the Pella brick and drain tile house at 222 Oskaloosa. We treat that as a major accomplishment because we're quite certain that without our involvement that house would have been demolished. We're now hoping to find a suitable buyer for this cute little house. It's a special part of South Pella. It's an old house. It's got a nice heritage of how it was built and why it was built. And we think the examples we have in our videotape later in the program are wonderful examples about how a creative buyer can come in, refurbish them, fix them up, and put them to good new use. We celebrated our 25th anniversary celebration this year with Dave Baker, an Iowa historian, who entertained us with an engaging presentation on the old history of South Pella. We've also started planning for the future for the Soul Sleeper Church. This is an 1860 era old church, obviously. It's located just behind the U.S. Bank at 824 Franklin Street. We're saying goodbye and thank you to a longtime renter, and that's Alfred Post and his business Pella Books. We're planning to rent this business location out to interested parties. They should contact us again at office@historicpellatrust.org if they have an interest in using this building and renting this building. During the year, we opened the Tuttle Cabin for several events, including the Christmas season, where we had for weaving and spinning demonstrations. We had it open the 4th of July for blacksmithing and wool spinning. Then we had a Pella Christian High winter class there that was sponsored by Home Realty. We've seen a lot of growth in Facebook, where we now have 3,900 followers, and some of these postings have been viewed by over 6,500 viewers. The COVID-19 pandemic canceled our Pella-wide second grade school field trip. We normally hold these field trips in April and early May, but as a replacement, we created a virtual field trip which was available on our HPT website, and that took place of the school living history trips. We really do hope to resume these next year. We find that for the second graders, all of the second graders in town, this is a fun, hands-on history lesson that puts them in a very real situation. So that's a recap of our major accomplishments for the past year. And now if we take a look at our financial results, we closed our fiscal year at the end of 2019. The revenue for that year, the gross income, was $136,000, which comes from a combination of property sale, rent income, membership, and donations. If we exclude the $90,000 sale of the Rock House, our gross income would have been about $46,000, which is more typical of the income for our organization. The bulk of the proceeds from the sale of the Rock House were used to purchase the Pella brick and drain tile house at 222 Oskaloosa. Our gross income exceeded our expenses by almost $52,000 during the same period. If we exclude the effect of the property sale, our expenses exceeded our income, and we showed a loss of $38,000. This loss reflects an extraordinary level of spending on maintenance costs. We did a lot of repair on the Soul Sleeper Church, and in general, just I think an extraordinary year for maintenance costs. Our year-end 2019 balance sheet showed we had no debt and approximately $99,000 in cash and total assets of $260,000. During the course of this year, 2020, we've seen heavy spending on the Tuttle Learning Walk. Our fundraising has also been an enormous focus effort because we need to raise the finishing funds so we can put the signage there, as well as put a lot of the plantings in place along the walk. So we would certainly appreciate your support in our efforts to raise the final $37,000 so we can complete this $200,000 project. So this has been a short recap of our work for the year 2019 through 2020. We appreciate your generous support both financially and with your efforts. We trust that you will find our work important enough that you will continue to support us financially and that you'll help us complete the fundraising for the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. So if you have questions about this presentation or would like to receive a copy of our most recent newsletter, please contact us at our contact location at www.historicpellatrust. And if you'd like to see the rest of our annual meeting, we would encourage you to connect to the associated videos. One will be on Jennifer as she leads us through a tour of the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. Mary Van Wyck will give us a tour of the Strawtown cottages. And we will have Katie Douglas, who will give you a tour of the work that she and her family have done at the Rock House. And so once you've seen those videos, then that will complete the presentation of our annual meeting.